The war was over, but Admiral Jake Morrison felt no joy as he stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance. Through the massive windows, he could see the remains of the hegemony fleet floating in space like broken toys. 12 years of fighting had finally ended, but the cost made his stomach turn. "Sir, the final casualty reports are ready," said Captain Lisa Hayes as she approached with a datapad in her hands. Her uniform was crisp, but Jake could see the tiredness in her eyes. Everyone looked tired these days. Jake took the pad and read, "The numbers. 2,300,000,000 humans dead. Entire colonies turned to glass by enemy weapons. Children who would never grow up, parents who died protecting their families, soldiers who gave everything for a future they would never see." "We won," Jake said quietly, but the words felt empty. "We actually won." Lisa nodded but did not smile. "The hegemony has surrendered completely. Their remaining ships are being escorted to prison camps. The alien species they enslaved are being freed." Jake set down the pad and looked out at the stars. Earth's sun was just a tiny dot from here, but he knew that back home people were celebrating in the streets. They had every right to celebrate. Humanity had faced complete destruction and somehow survived. But Jake could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. "There's something else, sir," Lisa said, her voice dropping lower. "Intelligence has found some disturbing information in the captured hegemony databases." "What kind of information?" Lisa handed him another pad. "The kind that changes everything." Jake read the file and felt his blood turn cold. The document was a communication log between hegemony commanders and someone on the human side. The messages were encrypted, but the translation was clear. Someone had been feeding the enemy information about human battle plans, supply routes, and civilian evacuation schedules. "This can't be right," Jake whispered. "I checked it 3 times, sir. The data is real. Someone on our side was helping them." Jake's hands shook as he read more files. The Battle of New Geneva, where 80 million civilians died when the hegemony found their hidden shelters. The Siege of Europa Station, where the enemy knew exactly which defenses to target first. The fall of Mars' defense grid, where their surprise attack was perfectly timed to avoid human reinforcements. All of these disasters had seemed like bad luck or enemy skill. Now Jake realized they were something much worse. They were betrayal. "How many people know about this?" Jake asked. "Just me and 2 other intelligence officers. I came to you first." Jake walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. Around him, his crew was celebrating the end of the war. They deserved their happiness. But Jake now carried a terrible burden. The war might be over, but humanity's fight was just beginning. "Who could do this?" he asked. "Who could sell out their own species?" Lisa pulled up more files on her pad. "The communications suggest multiple sources. Corporate executives, military officers, maybe even government officials. The hegemony was paying them in advanced technology and promises of power when the war ended. They thought we would lose." "Yes, sir. They were betting on the wrong side." Jake felt anger building in his chest. These traitors had caused the deaths of billions of humans. They had helped an alien empire that wanted to enslave or destroy humanity. They had sold out their own children's future for money and power. "What do we do now?" Lisa asked. Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "We hunt them down, every single one." "Sir, the war crimes tribunals will want to handle this through proper legal channels." "The tribunals are for enemy soldiers who followed orders," Jake said firmly. "This is different. These are humans who betrayed humanity itself. They deserve something special." Lisa nodded slowly. "What are your orders?" Gather your best people. Create a special team. I want every communication, every financial record, every piece of evidence you can find. Build me a list of every human. Who helped the enemy? And then, Jake looked out at the destroyed enemy fleet again. Then we make sure they understand that there is no place in this galaxy where they can hide from us. Over the next few hours, Lisa's team worked frantically to decode more enemy files. The picture that emerged was even worse than Jake had feared. The betrayal was not just a few desperate people making bad choices. It was organized, planned, and extensive. Companies that built human weapons had also built weapons for the enemy. Military officers had sold battle plans for alien technology. Politicians had delayed crucial votes on war funding after receiving secret payments. The network of traitors reached into every part of human society. Jake called a meeting with his senior staff. Around the table sat the officers who had fought beside him for 12 years. These were people he trusted with his life. Now he had to trust them with something more important. "What I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room," he began. "We have discovered that humans were actively helping the hegemony during the war." The room erupted in angry voices. His officers could not believe what they were hearing. Jake waited for them to calm down, then showed them the evidence. "This is why the enemy always seemed to know our plans," he continued. "This is why they hit our civilians so effectively. This is why so many good people died." Commander Pete Rogers, Jake's oldest friend, spoke first. "What do you want us to do?" "I want you to help me find them. All of them. And I want you to help me make sure they pay for what they've done." "The government will want to handle this legally," said Lieutenant Colonel Susan Price. Jake shook his head. "The government might have traitors in it too. We can't trust anyone except each other right now." The room fell silent as everyone understood what Jake was suggesting. They would operate outside normal military channels. They would hunt down the traitors themselves. "This is dangerous territory, Jake," Pete said quietly. "If we're wrong about someone, or if this gets out of control—" 2 billion people are dead because of these traitors," Jake replied. "I'm not worried about being careful anymore. I'm worried about justice." One by one, his officers nodded their agreement. They had all lost friends and family in the war. They had all wondered how the enemy seemed so well-informed. Now they knew, and they were ready to do something about it. "Then it's decided," Jake said. "The war is over, but our hunt has just begun." 3 months had passed since the war ended, and Colonel Alex Turner stood in his new office on Earth. The building looked normal from the outside, just another government facility in Washington. But inside, it housed the most dangerous investigation. In human history, President Helen Carter had created the Special Investigation Division after Admiral Morrison brought her the evidence of human betrayal. She chose Turner to lead it because he understood the cost of treason better than anyone. His wife and 2 children had died when the hegemony attacked Europa Station. The enemy had known exactly when the civilian transports would be most vulnerable. Turner walked through the main work area where his team was building what they called the list. Computer screens showed faces, names, and evidence files. Each person on the list had betrayed humanity during the war. Some had sold military secrets. Others had provided supplies to the enemy. A few had given the aliens information about civilian targets. "How many names do we have now?" Turner asked Dr. Karen Bell, his forensic analyst. Karen looked up from her computer. She was young but brilliant, and she had volunteered for this job after losing her parents in the New Geneva massacre. 437 confirmed traitors. Another 600 we're still investigating. Turner felt sick. Over 1,000 humans might have helped the enemy. "What about the evidence quality?" Solid on most of them, said Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott from across the room. Ryan had been an intelligence officer during the war and knew how to read enemy communications. The hegemony kept excellent records. They documented every payment, every piece of information they received, every human who contacted them. Turner picked up one of the files. The name on it was Marcus Webb, former CEO of Titan Defense Corporation. During the war, his company had built armor and weapons for human forces. But the hegemony files showed that Webb had also been selling them advanced weapon designs. The aliens had used those designs to build better guns that killed more human soldiers. Webb made 40 million credits from the aliens, Turner read aloud. He helped them kill our people for money. That's not even the worst one, Karen said. She pulled up another file on the main screen. General Patricia Kane sold the hegemony the complete defense plans for Mars. She got 50 million credits and a promise that her family would be spared when the aliens won. Turner studied Kane's photo. She looked like any other military officer, stern and professional. It was hard to believe that behind that face was someone who had sold out her own species. Where is she now? Turner asked. Disappeared 2 weeks ago, Ryan replied. She must have realized we were closing in. Her house is empty, her bank accounts are cleared out. Turner was not surprised. As word of the investigation spread, many of the traitors were running. They knew that normal legal proceedings would take years, and they probably hoped to hide until people forgot about their crimes. They did not understand that humanity would never forget. "Sir, we have a problem," said Captain Bobby Wright, Turner's security chief. He was a big man with scars on his face from the Battle of Titan. "Some of the names on our list are still in government positions." Turner looked at the files Bobby handed him. 3 senators, 2 cabinet members, and a federal judge were all suspected of helping the enemy. The evidence against them was strong, but they still held powerful positions in the human government. Senator Christopher Lee delayed the vote on military funding for 6 weeks, Turner read. During that time, 3 colonies fell because our forces didn't have enough supplies. The hegemony paid him 8 million credits. And Judge Mary Foster, Bobby continued. She dismissed several cases against companies that were suspected of trading with the enemy. The hegemony files show they paid her 2 million credits for each dismissal. Turner set down the files and rubbed his tired eyes. The corruption ran deeper than anyone had imagined. These people had not just betrayed humanity during the war. They were still in positions where they could hurt human interests. "What do we do about them?" Karen asked. "We can't just arrest sitting government officials without proof that will hold up in court." "Who says we need to arrest them?" Turner replied quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Turner was suggesting, but no one wanted to say it out loud. During the war, human special forces had learned to fight dirty. They had assassinated enemy leaders, sabotaged alien facilities, and eliminated threats without worrying about legal procedures. Maybe it was time to use those same methods against human traitors. "Sir," Ryan said carefully, "are you talking about sanctioned elimination?" Turner walked to the window and looked out at the city. People were going about their normal lives, happy that the war was over. They did not know that their own leaders had helped the enemy kill their friends and families. "I'm talking about justice," Turner said. "The courts will take years to process these cases. Many of the traitors will escape or use their wealth and connections to avoid punishment. Meanwhile, billions of dead humans will never get justice. The president won't approve assassination missions against American citizens," Bobby said. "Then we don't tell her," Turner replied. "We operate with the authority she already gave us. She said to investigate and handle the traitor problem. She didn't specify how." Turner turned back to his team. These were good people who had served humanity faithfully during the war. They deserved to know exactly what he was asking of them. "I want to be clear about what I'm proposing," he said. "We identify the traitors, we gather proof of their crimes, and then we eliminate them. Not arrest them, not bring them to trial. We make them disappear." "What about due process?" Karen asked. "What about the rule of law?" "Due process didn't save my family," Turner replied. "The rule of law didn't stop these people from selling human lives to aliens. Sometimes justice requires us to go beyond the law." Ryan nodded slowly. "How do we start?" Turner picked up Marcus Webb's file again. "We start with the ones who ran. Webb is hiding on Centauri Station, thinking he's safe in neutral space. We're going to show him that there's nowhere in the galaxy where traitors can hide from us." "Centauri Station is heavily defended," Bobby warned. "It's not human territory. We can't just send in the Marines." "We don't need Marines," Turner said. "We need a small team that can get in quietly, grab Webb, and get out without anyone knowing we were there." Turner looked around the room at his team. "I want volunteers only. What we're about to do is dangerous and possibly illegal. If you want out, you can transfer to another department with no questions asked." No one moved. Everyone in the room had lost someone to the traitors' crimes. They were ready to do whatever it took to get justice. "Good," Turner said. "Then let's start planning our first hunt." Over the next week, Turner's team prepared for their mission to Centauri Station. They studied the station's layout, identified security weaknesses, and planned multiple escape routes. They also researched Webb's habits and routines. The man who had sold weapon designs to humanity's enemies was living comfortably in a luxury apartment, spending his blood money on expensive food and entertainment. He probably thought he was safe. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Turner's hunt for the traitors was about to begin. Centauri Station hung in space like a giant metal flower, its arms stretching out from a central hub. Thousands of ships docked there every day, carrying traitors, diplomats, and refugees from across the galaxy. It was neutral territory where no single government could make arrests or start fights. Marcus Webb thought that made him safe. He was wrong. Colonel Alex Turner watched the station through the window of his ship, the Gray Wolf. His team had spent 2 weeks getting ready for this mission. They had studied every corridor, every security system, every way in and out of the station. Now it was time to show the first traitor that there was no place to hide. "Station security has 40 guards," reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott. "They're mostly there to stop bar fights and theft. They're not expecting a military operation." "What about Webb's personal security?" asked Captain Bobby Wright. "2 bodyguards," replied Dr. Karen Bell, reading from her tablet. "Former soldiers. But they're not expecting trouble either. Webb has been living like he's on vacation." Turner felt anger rise in his chest. While Webb enjoyed his luxury apartment, millions of human families were still mourning their dead. The man was spending money he had earned by helping aliens kill his own species. "Remember the mission," Turner told his team. "We grab Webb quietly, get him to our ship, and extract the information we need. Then we dispose of him and leave. No witnesses, no evidence." The team nodded. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it would be dangerous and illegal. But they also knew it was necessary. The normal legal system would take years to bring Webb to trial, and he might escape justice completely. Turner's team consisted of 6 people. Besides himself, Ryan, Bobby, and Karen, he had brought Sergeant Tony Martinez, an expert at breaking into secure facilities, and Lieutenant Ashley Cooper, a pilot who could fly anything with engines. They were all veterans of the war, and they all had personal reasons to hate the traitors. "Docking permission granted," Ashley reported from the pilot's seat. "We're cleared for Bay 17. Turner straightened his civilian clothes. They were posing as traders looking to buy rare metals. Their ship was registered under a fake name, and their identification papers would pass basic security checks. As long as no one looked too closely, they would blend in with the thousands of other visitors. The station's docking bay was busy and noisy. Ships of all sizes were loading and unloading cargo, while crews shouted orders in dozens of languages. Turner's team split up and moved through the crowds separately, meeting again at a cantina near the residential section. Webb's apartment was in the expensive part of the station, where wealthy merchants and retired officials lived. The corridors were cleaner there, and the security cameras were newer. Turner's team would have to be very careful. "Cameras are on a rotation cycle," Tony reported quietly as they sat at a corner table. "I can loop the recordings for 20 minutes, but that's all." 20 minutes should be enough," Turner replied. "Karen, you've got the interrogation drugs ready?" Karen patted a small bag at her side. "Fast-acting truth serum and memory enhancer. He'll tell us everything he knows within 10 minutes. "What? About disposal?" Bobby asked. Turner had thought about this carefully. They could not leave Webb's body on the station because that would cause an investigation. They could not take it back to human space because that would be evidence of their illegal mission. "We space him," Turner said simply. "Make it look like he opened an airlock by accident. Happens to drunk tourists sometimes." The team finished their drinks and left the cantina separately. Turner and Ryan went to scout Webb's apartment building while the others prepared their equipment. The building had good security, but it was designed to keep out thieves, not trained military operators. Webb lived on the 15th floor in a corner apartment with a view of the stars. Turner watched through binoculars as the man moved around. His living room, drinking expensive wine and watching entertainment programs. He looked relaxed and happy, without a care in the world. 2 bodyguards confirmed, Ryan whispered. 1 in the hallway outside his door, 1 inside the apartment with him. "Amateur setup," Turner replied. "They're not expecting a real threat." At midnight, Turner's team moved into position. Tony disabled the security cameras while Ashley stayed with their ship, ready for a quick departure. Turner, Ryan, Bobby, and Karen approached Webb's building through the maintenance tunnels. The building's security system was expensive but predictable. Tony's equipment had mapped all the electronic locks and alarm systems. Within minutes, they were inside and moving up the emergency stairs. The bodyguard in the hallway was easy to handle. Bobby came around the corner pretending to be lost, and when the guard approached to help him, Ryan hit the man with a sleep dart. The guard collapsed quietly. Getting into the apartment was harder. Turner used a small explosive charge to blow the lock, but that would alert the second bodyguard. They had to move fast. Turner kicked in the door and rolled to the left while Bobby went right. The bodyguard inside was reaching for his weapon when Ryan's dart hit him in the neck. He fell backward onto Webb's expensive carpet. Webb himself was sitting on his couch, wine glass in hand, staring at the armed men who had suddenly appeared in his home. His face was pale with shock. "Marcus Webb," Turner said, pointing his gun at the traitor's chest. "You're coming with us." "You can't do this," Webb stammered. "This is neutral territory. You have no authority here." Turner smiled coldly. "We don't need authority. We need justice." They dragged Webb to a storage room in the building's basement. It was soundproof and private, perfect for what they needed to do. Karen injected Webb with her drugs, while Bobby and Ryan stood guard. The interrogation. Serum worked quickly. Within minutes, Webb was telling them everything. He gave them names of other traitors, details of payments from the hegemony, and information about ongoing conspiracies. Turner recorded it all on a secure device. "The Nexus Industries Board," Webb said in a dreamy voice. "They're still working with former hegemony officials, planning to share human technology with alien corporations." "Where are they meeting?" Turner demanded. "Mining station in the Vega system. Next month. Victoria Stone is organizing everything." Turner looked at his team. This was exactly the kind of information they needed. Webb's capture was already paying off. "Any other active traitors you know about?" Ryan asked. "General Kane," Webb replied. "She's building a network of people who want to make deals with the aliens. Says humanity needs alien technology to survive." Turner had heard enough. He signaled to Bobby, who pulled out a small device that looked like a medical injector. "What's that?" Webb asked, his voice still slurred from the drugs. "Justice," Turner replied. Bobby injected Webb with a fast-acting poison. The traitor died within seconds, his heart simply stopping. They made it look like a drug overdose, something that would not surprise anyone who investigated his death. Getting Webb's body to an airlock was the hardest part of the mission. They had to move carefully through the station's corridors, avoiding security cameras and other people. But Tony had mapped out a route through the maintenance areas that was rarely used. They put Webb's body in a waste disposal unit that would eject it into space. In a few hours, the station's automated systems would cycle the unit, and Webb would disappear forever into the void between stars. Turner's team returned to their ship and left Centauri Station before dawn. As they jumped to hyperspace, Turner felt satisfied for the first time since the war ended. They had eliminated one traitor and gained valuable information about others. "That was almost too easy," Ashley said from the pilot's seat. "They're not expecting us yet," Turner replied. "That will change after word gets out. But for now, we have the advantage of surprise." Turner looked at the information they had gathered from Webb. The names, the meetings, the ongoing conspiracies. Humanity's enemies thought the war was over, but they were wrong. The hunt was just beginning. The Nexus Industries building reached into the sky like a steel finger pointing at the stars. From his position across the street, Commander Nick Foster watched employees stream in and out of the main entrance. They looked like normal people, going to normal jobs. None of them knew their company had helped aliens try to destroy humanity. Nick adjusted his fake identification badge and checked his appearance in a shop window. He looked like any other corporate worker in his expensive suit and carrying case. For the next few weeks, he would be Nathan Fisher, a new financial analyst transferred from the Mars office. His job was to get inside Nexus Industries and find evidence of their ongoing crimes. 3 weeks had passed since Colonel Turner's team had eliminated Marcus Webb. The information they had extracted from the traitor was proving extremely valuable. Webb had told them that Nexus Industries was still working with former hegemony officials, planning to share human technology with alien corporations. Nick walked into the Nexus building and presented his credentials to security. The guard scanned his identification and waved him through. Getting fake employment records into the Nexus system had been easy for Turner's technical team. Large corporations hired so many people that one more analyst would not attract attention. The elevator carried Nick to the 42nd floor, where the financial department was located. His cover story was that he was there to audit some investment accounts. In reality, he was looking for evidence of payments to alien groups and secret technology transfers. "You must be Nathan," said a woman approaching his desk. She was middle-aged, with gray hair and a friendly smile. "I'm Linda Walsh, department manager. Welcome to Nexus." Nick smiled back and shook her hand. "Thanks. I'm excited to get started." "I hope you don't mind diving right in," Linda said. "We have a big audit coming up, and we need all hands on deck." Perfect, Nick thought. An audit would give him access to exactly the kind of records he needed to see. While Nick worked inside, Nexus Industries Sergeant Amy Clark was attacking the company from the outside. Amy was a computer expert who had learned her skills breaking into hegemony systems during the war. Now she was using those same skills to hack into Nexus databases. Amy sat in a rented apartment across town, surrounded by computers and electronic equipment. Her screens showed dozens of programs running simultaneously as she probed Nexus security systems. The company had good firewalls, but Amy had learned to fight aliens who were hundreds of years more advanced than humans. Corporate security was child's play. "I'm into their main financial database," Amy reported over her secure communicator. "Beginning data extraction now." Back at Turner's headquarters, the team watched Amy's progress on the main screen. Lines of code scrolled by as she copied thousands of files from Nexus computers. Bank records, investment accounts, communication logs, and project files all flowed into their analysis systems. "Look at this," said Dr. Karen Bell, pointing at one of the financial records. "Nexus received 200 million credits from something called the Centauri Development Fund 6 months ago." Turner studied the record. "What's the Centauri Development Fund? Front organization," replied Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott. "It's actually controlled by former hegemony officials who escaped the war crimes tribunals." Turner felt his anger growing. Not only had Nexus helped the aliens during the war, but they were still taking money from humanity's enemies. The company was continuing to betray their own species even after the war ended. "What are they spending the money on?" Turner asked. Karen pulled up more files on her screen. "Research and development projects, something called Project Genesis and Project Harmony. The details are encrypted." "Amy, can you break those encryption codes?" Turner asked over the communicator. "Working on it," Amy replied. "These are military-grade encryptions. It might take a few hours." While Amy worked on the encrypted files, Nick continued his investigation inside the Nexus building. His position in the financial department gave him access to many company records, but he needed to get to the executive floors where the real decisions were made. The opportunity came when Linda Walsh asked him to deliver some reports to the executive offices on the 60th floor. Nick took the elevator up and found himself in a very different world. The executive floor had expensive art on the walls, thick carpets, and windows that offered amazing views of the city. "Can I help you?" asked a secretary as Nick approached the reception desk. "Financial reports for Ms. Stone," Nick said, holding up a folder. The secretary pointed down a hallway. "Conference room 3. She's in a meeting." Nick walked down the hallway and stopped outside conference room 3. Through the glass door, he could see Victoria Stone, the CEO of Nexus Industries, talking to several other people around a large table. Nick recognized one of them from intelligence photos. It was Zektar, a former hegemony general who had escaped, just after the war. Nick activated a small recording device hidden in his jacket and moved closer to the door. He could not hear everything, but he caught enough words to understand what they were discussing. They were planning to give alien corporations access to human military technology in exchange for advanced manufacturing techniques. "The genetic targeting systems were very effective," he heard Stone say. "Our alien partners are interested in refining them further. Nick felt sick. Genetic targeting systems were weapons designed to kill specific species. The hegemony had tried to develop weapons that would kill only humans while leaving other species alive. Nexus had apparently helped them with this research. "Nathan, what are you doing here?" Nick turned around and saw Linda Walsh approaching with a confused expression. He had been so focused on the meeting that he had not heard her coming. "Just delivering reports," Nick said, holding up the folder. Linda looked suspicious. "That meeting is classified. You shouldn't be up here." Nick smiled and tried to look embarrassed. "Sorry, I got lost looking for the conference room. These executive floors all look the same." Linda seemed to accept his explanation, but Nick could tell she was still suspicious. He needed to get out of the building quickly and report what he had learned. That evening, Nick met with Turner's team at a safe house outside the city. He described what he had seen and heard in the executive conference room. The recording device had captured enough conversation to confirm their worst fears. "They're not just taking money from former hegemony officials," Nick reported. "They're actively working with them to develop new weapons that could be used against humans." Turner listened to the recording several times, his face growing darker with each replay. "Genetic targeting systems," he said finally. "They're helping aliens develop weapons to kill humans more efficiently." "It gets worse," Amy added from her computer station. "I broke the encryption on those project files." Project Genesis is research into human genetic weaknesses. Project Harmony is developing ways to control human behavior using alien technology. Turner stood up and began pacing the room. This was worse than simple betrayal during wartime. Nexus Industries was actively working to help humanity's enemies find new ways to harm the human species. "How many people are involved in this?" Turner asked. Amy consulted her files. "The entire board of directors knows about the alien partnerships. That's 12 people, plus about 30 researchers and engineers working on the classified projects." Turner made his decision. "We're going to shut them down. All of them." "Sir," Ryan said carefully, "that's a lot of people. Making 40-plus corporate executives disappear will attract attention." "Then we don't make them disappear," Turner replied. "We expose them publicly and let human justice take its course. But first, we make sure they can't destroy the evidence." Turner outlined his plan. Amy would continue hacking Nexus systems to copy all their files. Nick would gather more evidence from inside the company. Then they would simultaneously release the information to news organizations and law enforcement while eliminating the key figures who pose the greatest threat. "Victoria Stone and the board members are the priority targets," Turner said. "The researchers might just be following orders, but the executives made the decision to betray humanity." Over the next week, Turner's team prepared for their largest operation yet. They identified the home addresses of all 12 board members, studied their security arrangements, and planned simultaneous strikes. The night of the operation, Nick planted explosive devices in the Nexus building that would destroy the most sensitive research labs. Amy launched a massive cyber attack that copied all of Nexus's files while simultaneously sending evidence of their crimes to every major news organization on Earth. At the same time, Turner led teams to eliminate the board members. They struck, quickly and efficiently, making each death look like an accident or random crime. Victoria Stone died in what appeared to be a car crash. Other board members suffered heart attacks, home invasions, and industrial accidents. By morning, Nexus Industries was in chaos. Their secret labs were destroyed, their files were in the hands of law enforcement, and their entire leadership was dead. The news organizations were already broadcasting stories about the company's betrayal of humanity. Turner watched the news coverage from his office and felt satisfied. Nexus Industries had been one of the largest corporate traders, and now General Patricia Kane stood in the cargo hold of a converted freighter, looking at the faces of 23 people who called themselves the Second Chance Movement. They were all traitors who had helped the hegemony during the war, and now they were running from Colonel Turner's hunters. "The situation is getting worse," Kane told the group. "Turner's people eliminated the entire Nexus board last week. They're not interested in arrests or trials. They want us dead." A man named Eddie Price raised his hand. He had been a communications officer who sold human encryption codes to the aliens. "Maybe we should surrender. Try to work out some kind of deal." Kane shook her head. "There are no deals with Turner. I've studied his psychological profile. He lost his family because of information leaks, and now he's on a personal mission of revenge. He won't stop until every name on his list is crossed off." The group fell silent. These people had made terrible choices during the war, but most of them had believed they were doing the right thing. They thought the hegemony would win, and they wanted to save as many human lives as possible by cooperating with the aliens. Some had been promised that their families would be spared. Others had been told that resistance was hopeless. "What do we do?" asked Sandra Mills, a former judge who had dismissed cases against alien sympathizers. "We can't run forever." Kane had been thinking about this problem for weeks. Turner's hunters were too skilled and too determined to avoid indefinitely. The only way to survive was to fight back. "We defend ourselves," Kane said. "Turner thinks he's hunting helpless victims. It's time to show him that we can hunt too." Kane activated a holographic display showing a star map. Red dots marked the locations of Turner's known operations and safe houses. Blue dots showed the locations of Second Chance Movement members who were still free. "Turner has family and friends," Kane continued. "He has people he cares about. Maybe it's time he understood what it feels like to lose them." The idea of targeting Turner's innocent relatives made some group members uncomfortable, but they were desperate. Turner's hunters had killed 37 traitors in the past 2 months. The pace was accelerating, and it was only a matter of time before they found everyone. "I still think we should try negotiating," said Dr. Carl Stevens, a scientist, who had shared research with alien colleagues. "Surely there's some way to make them understand that we were trying to prevent greater bloodshed." Kane laughed bitterly. "Tell that to Turner's dead wife and children. Tell that to the families of 80 million people who died at New Geneva. Because I sold the hegemony our defense plans." Kane's admission silenced the group. They all knew she had been responsible for one of humanity's worst defeats, but hearing her say it out loud was shocking. "I'm not proud of what I did," Kane continued. "I thought I was saving lives by shortening the war. I was wrong. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let Turner execute me without a fight." Over the next few days, Kane's people began setting up their own intelligence network. They had contacts in various organizations who could provide information about Turner's operations. Some were other traitors who had not yet been discovered. Others were people who opposed Turner's vigilante methods on principle. The first break came from an unexpected source. Judge Mary Foster, who was still sitting on the federal bench despite being on Turner's list, used her position to access law enforcement files. She discovered the location of Turner's main headquarters and the identities of his key team members. "Turner is operating out of a building in downtown Washington," Foster reported during a secure video call. "The facility is registered as a consulting company, but it's actually his hunter headquarters. Kane studied the building plans that Foster had obtained. The facility had good security, but it was not designed to withstand a military assault. More importantly, it contained all of Turner's files and evidence. Destroying it would seriously damage his operations. "What about his team?" Kane asked. Kane. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott lives in an apartment building in Arlington, Foster replied. Dr. Karen Bell has a house in Georgetown. Captain Bobby Wright lives with his elderly parents in Baltimore. Kane made her decision. "We hit them all. Simultaneously. Turner's headquarters, his key personnel, and their families. We show him that this is not a one-sided hunt anymore." Some members of the Second Chance movement objected to targeting innocent families, but Kane overruled them. This was war, and in war there were always civilian casualties. Kane divided her people into 3 teams. The first team would attack Turner's headquarters with explosives and automatic weapons. The second team would eliminate Turner's key personnel at their homes. The third team would kidnap or kill family members of Turner's hunters. The attacks were scheduled for the following Tuesday, when intelligence suggested that Turner would be in his office for an important meeting. Kane's people spent the weekend preparing weapons and explosives while gathering final intelligence on their targets. On Tuesday morning, Kane's first team approached the downtown building that housed Turner's headquarters. They were disguised as maintenance workers carrying toolboxes that actually contained bombs and weapons. The building's security guards did not suspect anything unusual. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the team placed explosive charges in the building's basement and main lobby. The bombs were designed to bring down the entire structure, killing everyone inside and destroying all of Turner's files. But when the explosives detonated, something went wrong. The building did not collapse. Instead, emergency alarms sounded, and heavily armed security forces appeared from hidden positions. Kane's people found themselves surrounded by professional soldiers who had been waiting for them. At the same time, the other teams discovered that their targets were not where they were supposed to be. Ryan Scott's apartment was empty. Karen Bell's house was vacant. Bobby Wright's parents had been moved to a secure location. Kane realized with growing horror that Turner had anticipated their attack. Somehow, he had known they were coming and had set a trap for them. Turner's voice came over the building's intercom system. "General Patricia Kane, this is Colonel Alex Turner. You and your people are surrounded. Surrender now, and I promise you'll live long enough to face trial." Kane looked around at her trapped team members. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Several of them were already wounded from the firefight with Turner's security forces. "How did you know?" Kane shouted back. "Judge Foster has been working for us for 3 weeks, Turner replied. "Every piece of information she gave you came from us. We've been watching your Second Chance movement since it started." Kane felt sick. Foster had been feeding them false information while reporting their plans to Turner. The entire resistance network had been compromised from the beginning. "You have 30 seconds to surrender," Turner announced. "After that, my people will eliminate all of you." Kane looked at her remaining team members. They were scared and wounded, but they were still fighting. She could surrender and hope for mercy, or she could go down fighting. She chose to fight. Kane pulled out a grenade and prepared to throw it at Turner's security forces. But before she could pull the pin, a sniper's bullet hit her in the chest. She fell backward, blood spreading across her uniform. As Kane lay dying, she could hear gunfire as Turner's people eliminated the rest of her team. The Second Chance movement was finished. In trying to fight back against the hunters, they had only made their situation worse. Turner appeared beside Kane as she struggled to breathe. He looked down at her with cold eyes. "Any last words, General?" he asked. Kane tried to speak, but blood filled her mouth. She wanted to tell him that she had been trying to save lives, that her betrayal had been motivated by mercy rather than greed. But Turner would never understand or forgive what she had done. "I'm sorry," she whispered with her final breath. Turner looked down at the dead traitor for a moment, then turned to his team. "Clean this up. Make sure there are no survivors." The Second Chance Movement's attempt to fight back had failed completely. Instead of weakening Turner's hunters, it had only confirmed that the traitors were dangerous enemies who needed to be eliminated without mercy. The hunt would continue, and now Turner knew that his enemies were desperate enough to try anything. He would have to be even more careful and ruthless in his pursuit of the remaining traitors. But he also knew that the resistance network was broken. The remaining traitors were on their own, with nowhere to run and no one to help them. The hunters had won this round decisively. The farming colony of New Eden looked peaceful under the light of two suns. Green fields stretched to the horizon, and small houses dotted the landscape like toys scattered by a child. Colonel Alex Turner watched through binoculars as people worked in the fields, their movements slow and relaxed. It was hard to believe that one of humanity's worst traitors was hiding among these innocent farmers. Senator Christopher Lee had disappeared 3 months ago when he learned that Turner's hunters were closing in. Intelligence reports had finally tracked him to this remote agricultural world, where he was living under the name Chris Lewis. According to the files, Lee had voted against critical military funding bills during the war, delaying important supplies that could have saved millions of lives, Target confirmed, reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott through Turner's earpiece. "He's working in the grain processing facility on the north side of the settlement." Turner adjusted his position on the hillside overlooking the colony. Through his binoculars, he could see a man who matched Lee's description loading bags of grain onto a transport vehicle. The former senator looked older and thinner than in his official photos, but it was definitely him. "Any sign of security or escape routes?" Turner asked. "Negative," replied Captain Bobby Wright from his position on the opposite hill. "No guards, no weapons, no way off the planet except for the weekly supply transport. He's not expecting trouble." Turner studied the settlement for another hour, memorizing the layout and identifying potential threats. The colonists were all farmers and their families, simple people who had come here to build new lives away from the crowded worlds of human space. They had no idea that a war criminal was living among them. As Turner watched, Lee finished his work and walked to a small house on the edge of the settlement. A woman came out to greet him, followed by 2 young children. Lee hugged the woman and picked up the smaller child, spinning her around while she giggled. Turner felt his stomach clench. According to his intelligence files, Lee had no family. His wife and children had died in a transport accident years before the war started. These people were not his relatives. "Ryan, are you seeing this?" Turner asked quietly. "Copy that, sir. Target appears to have acquired a new family." Turner watched as Lee played with the children in the front yard of the house. The man looked happy and relaxed, nothing like the stressed politician who had betrayed humanity during the war. He had built a new life here, complete with people who loved and depended on him. "What are your orders, sir?" Bobby asked. Turner lowered his binoculars and considered his options. His mission was to eliminate Christopher Lee for his crimes against humanity. Lee's votes in the Senate had delayed military funding for 6 crucial weeks, during which 3 colonies had fallen to hegemony attacks. Tens of millions of people had died because of his betrayal. But killing Lee would also destroy the innocent family he had built. The woman and children had done nothing wrong. They probably did not even know who Lee really was, or what he had done during the war. "Sir?" Ryan's voice prompted him. Turner raised his binoculars again and watched Lee reading a story to the two children on the front porch. The man looked genuinely happy, as if he had found peace after years of guilt and fear. "Stand by," Turner said. "I need to think about this." Turner had killed many traitors over the past 6 months, but this situation was different. All of his previous targets had been alone or surrounded by other criminals. This was the first time he had encountered a traitor who had innocent people depending on him. Turner activated his communicator and called Dr. Karen Bell, who was monitoring the mission from their ship in orbit. "Karen, I need you to research Christopher Lee's background on this colony. How long has he been here? What's his relationship to the family he's living with?" "Stand by," Karen replied. Turner waited while she accessed the colony's records through their computer systems. "Lee arrived here 14 months ago," Karen reported. "He married a widow named Martha Collins 6 months later and legally adopted her 2 children. According to local records, he's been a model citizen. He works hard, pays his taxes, and helps his neighbors." Turner felt conflicted. Lee had committed terrible crimes during the war, but he seemed to have genuinely changed his life. The man was no longer a threat to humanity, and killing him would destroy an innocent family. "The children are ages 6 and 8, Karen continued. "Their biological father died in a farming accident 3 years ago. Lee is the only father they remember." Turner closed his eyes and tried to focus on his mission. Justice demanded that Lee pay for his crimes. The families of the people who died because of his betrayal deserved to see him punished. Turner's own family deserved to be avenged. But Turner also thought about the 2 children who would lose their stepfather and the woman who would lose her husband. They were innocent victims who would suffer for crimes they had not committed. Turner opened his eyes and made his decision. "Ryan, Bobby, meet me at the landing zone. We're going in." Turner and his team approached the settlement at sunset, when most of the colonists were inside their homes having dinner. They moved carefully through the grain fields, staying low and avoiding the main roads. Lee's house was isolated at the edge of the settlement, surrounded by vegetable gardens and fruit trees. Through the windows, Turner could see the family eating dinner together. Lee was telling a story that made the children laugh, while Martha smiled and served food. Turner positioned his team around the house and waited for the family to finish eating. He wanted to minimize the trauma for the children, but he also needed to confront Lee about his crimes. When the children went to their room to play and Martha began cleaning dishes, Turner made his move. He approached the front door and knocked gently. Lee answered the door with a dish towel in his hands, clearly expecting a neighbor or friend. When he saw Turner in his military uniform, Lee's face went pale with recognition and fear. "Christopher Lee," Turner said quietly. "We need to talk." Lee glanced back toward the kitchen where Martha was working, then stepped outside and closed the door behind him. "Please," Lee whispered. "Don't hurt them. They don't know who I am." Turner studied the man's face. Lee looked genuinely terrified, but not for himself. His fear was for the family he had built on this peaceful world. "Tell me about the Senate votes," Turner said. "Tell me why you delayed the military funding bills." Lee's shoulders sagged as if a great weight had settled on them. "I thought I was preventing a massacre. The hegemony had contacted me through secret channels. They said they would spare human colonies if we stopped escalating the military buildup. You believed them?" "I wanted to believe them," Lee replied. The war was killing millions of people. I thought maybe there was a chance for peace. Turner felt his anger rising. Your delays cost us 3 colonies. 40 million people died because our forces didn't have the supplies they needed. Lee nodded miserably. I know. I've lived with that guilt every day since the war ended. I tried to kill myself twice, but I couldn't go through with it. When I found Martha and the children, I thought maybe I could do some good in the time I have left. Turner looked through the window at the children playing in their room. They were laughing and building something with wooden blocks, completely unaware that their world was about to be destroyed. They call me Daddy, Lee said quietly. It's the first time anyone has called me that. I never had children of my own. Turner made his final decision. He pulled out his weapon and pointed it at Lee's chest. You're coming with us, Turner said. You'll face trial for your crimes against humanity. Lee looked confused. Trial? I thought you were here to execute me. I was, Turner admitted. But I'm not going to make those children watch their father die. You'll come quietly, and we'll tell them you had to go away on business. Maybe someday they'll understand why you never came back. Relief flooded Lee's face, followed quickly by sadness. Can I say goodbye? Turner nodded. Make it quick, and if you try to run or warn them, I'll shoot you in front of them. Lee went back into the house and spent 10 minutes with his family. Turner could hear him telling Martha that he had to go away for work, that he might be gone for a long time. The children complained, but Lee promised to bring them presents when he returned. When Lee came back outside, there were tears in his eyes. Thank you, he said to Turner, for letting me say goodbye. Turner and his team escorted Lee to their ship without resistance. As they lifted off from New Eden, Turner looked down at the small house where Martha and the children were probably wondering when their husband and father would come home. Lee would face trial on Earth for his war crimes. He would probably be executed eventually. But Turner had chosen to preserve the innocence of his adopted family rather than traumatize them with his death. It was not perfect justice, but it was the right thing to do. Turner was learning that revenge and justice were not always the same thing, and that sometimes mercy was more important than punishment. The hunt would continue, but Turner would remember this lesson as he pursued the remaining traitors. Not all of his enemies were monsters, and not all of their victims deserved to suffer for their crimes. Colonel Alex Turner stared at the photographs spread across his desk, his hands shaking with rage and disbelief. The images showed Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Grant meeting with former hegemony officials in a secret facility on Titan Station. The meetings had been happening for months, right under the nose of Earth's government. How did we miss this? Turner demanded. Dr. Karen Bell looked up from her computer terminal, her face pale with exhaustion. She had been working around the clock to verify the intelligence they had received from a whistleblower inside the Defense Department. Grant has been very careful, Karen replied. He's been using military intelligence resources to cover his tracks and eliminate anyone who might expose him. The only reason we found out is because someone on the inside finally got scared enough to contact us. Turner picked up one of the photographs. It showed Grant shaking hands with Thekmore, a former hegemony admiral who had escaped the war crimes tribunals. In the background, Turner could see human and alien scientists working together on some kind of project. What are they working on? Turner asked. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott consulted his notes. According to our source, it's called Project Reconciliation. Grant and his alien partners are developing technology that could give them control over human colonial governments. Turner felt sick. After everything humanity had suffered during the war, there were still people willing to sell out their own species. But this was worse than the previous traitors because Grant was still in a position of power within the human government. He's been feeding information to these aliens for 6 months, Ryan continued. Battle plans, defense strategies, economic data, everything they need to know about humanity's weaknesses. Captain Bobby Wright spoke up from his position by the window. Sir, we have another problem. Someone leaked information about our operation to capture Christopher Lee. Grant's people know we're investigating government officials. Turner had suspected this for weeks. His team had been suffering unusual equipment failures and security breaches. Their safe houses had been discovered, and several of their intelligence sources had disappeared. Someone with high-level access was working against them. How many people in the government are involved? Turner asked. Karen pulled up a list on her computer screen. We've identified at least 12 officials who are definitely working with Grant. Probably more that we haven't found yet. They call themselves the Integration Committee. Turner studied the names on the list. Senators, cabinet members, military, officers, and intelligence officials. The conspiracy reached into every part of the human government. They believe humanity needs alien technology to survive, Karen continued. Grant has convinced them that cooperating with former hegemony officials is the only way to prevent another war. Turner slammed his fist on the desk. So they're going to sell us out to prevent a war? Don't they understand that they're making another war inevitable? Before anyone could answer, Turner's secure communicator buzzed with an urgent message. He read it quickly, then looked up at his team with a grim expression. Dr. Bell is dead, he announced quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at Turner in shock and disbelief. What do you mean? Ryan asked. Car bomb, Turner replied. 20 minutes ago, outside her apartment building. Karen, you need to get to a safe location immediately. Karen was already gathering her equipment. They know we're getting close. Grant is eliminating anyone who might expose him. Turner activated the building's emergency protocols, sealing all entrances and exits. His headquarters had been designed to withstand attacks. But if Grant had access to military resources, they might not be safe anywhere. Sir, we have movement outside, Bobby reported from the window. Military vehicles approaching from 3 directions. Turner looked out and saw armored personnel carriers and assault vehicles surrounding his building. Soldiers in full combat gear were taking positions around the perimeter. These were not police or federal agents. They were military special forces. Grant is making his move, Turner said. He's going to eliminate us along with all the evidence we've gathered. Turner's team had prepared for this possibility. The building had hidden escape routes and defensive positions, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Grant's forces had heavy weapons and military training. We need to get our evidence to someone who can use it, Turner said. Karen, can you transmit our files to reliable contacts in the media and law enforcement? Karen was already working at her computer, uploading everything to secure servers now. Even if they destroy this building, the information will survive. The attack began with explosions that shook the entire structure. Grant's forces were using military-grade weapons to breach the building's defenses. Turner could hear gunfire and shouting as soldiers fought their way through the lower levels. They're not trying to arrest us, Bobby observed. They're trying to kill us. Turner was not surprised. Grant could not afford to let them live to testify about his crimes. The only way to keep the conspiracy secret was to eliminate everyone who knew about it. Ryan, Bobby, get to the escape tunnel, Turner ordered. Make sure Karen's data transmission is completed, then get her out of here. What about you, sir? Ryan asked. Turner picked up his rifle and checked the ammunition. I'm going to buy you time to escape. Someone needs to survive to continue the hunt. Turner's team reluctantly followed his orders while he prepared to make his last stand. He had known this day might come when he started hunting the traitors. The corruption went deeper than anyone had imagined, and now it was fighting back with all the resources of the government. Grant's soldiers reached the main floor of Turner's headquarters within minutes. They moved with professional efficiency, using advanced weapons and tactical equipment. Turner managed to slow them down with defensive positions and booby traps, but he was fighting a losing battle. The end came when Grant's forces used explosives to breach Turner's final defensive position. As smoke filled the room and soldiers advanced through the debris, Turner made his choice. He activated a dead man's switch that would destroy all remaining evidence in the building, but just as Grant's soldiers reached his position, Turner heard the sound of different weapons firing from behind the attacking force. Someone else had entered the building and was fighting Grant's troops. Through the smoke and confusion, Turner saw Admiral Jake Morrison leading a team of loyal military officers. Morrison's people were using the same tactics and equipment as Grant's forces, but they were fighting to save Turner rather than kill him. "Jake!" Turner called out as Morrison's team overwhelmed Grant's soldiers. Morrison approached Turner's position with his weapon ready. "Alex, we need to get you out of here. Grant has declared you a terrorist and authorized lethal force." Turner was amazed to see his old friend. "How did you know I was in trouble?" "Your Dr. Bell sent us copies of all your evidence before she died," Morrison replied. "We've been investigating Grant's conspiracy from our end. It's time to bring this into the open." Morrison's team escorted Turner through the building to a waiting transport. As they flew away from the burning headquarters, Turner could see that the battle was spreading throughout the city. Grant's forces and Morrison's loyal troops were fighting in the streets. "Grant has split the military," Morrison explained. "About half the senior officers are loyal to him and his integration committee. The other half still believe in defending humanity from alien threats." Turner realized that his hunt for individual traitors had uncovered something much larger and more dangerous. The human government itself was infected with people who were willing to sell out their own species. "What do we do now?" Turner asked. Morrison looked out at the city where human forces were fighting each other. "Now we finish what you started. We expose Grant's conspiracy and eliminate everyone involved. But this time, we do it in the open, where everyone can see." Turner nodded grimly. The secret phase of his hunt was over. Now the battle for humanity's future would be fought in the light, where everyone could choose which side they supported. The war for humanity's soul was just beginning. "Morrison, have your people set charges throughout this facility," Turner ordered. "We're going to destroy everything here." "What about the prisoners?" Morrison asked. Turner looked at Grant and the other conspirators. These people had betrayed humanity in the worst possible way. They had sold out entire colonies and subjected innocent people to alien experiments. They deserved no mercy. "They stay here," Turner said quietly. Morrison nodded, understanding. His soldiers began placing explosive charges throughout the facility, while Turner's team downloaded all the computer files they could carry. As they prepared to leave, Grant seemed to come out of his drug-induced haze enough to understand what was happening. "You can't kill us all," he said desperately. "There are too many of us. The integration committee will continue our work even if you destroy this facility." Turner looked down at the man who had betrayed his own species. "Maybe, but you won't be alive to see it." Turner and Morrison's forces evacuated Titan Station and watched from their ships as the facility exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Grant, Thekmore, and the other conspirators died instantly, along with all their research and equipment. But Turner knew this was not the end. Grant had been telling the truth about the scope of the conspiracy. There were other facilities, other conspirators, and other human colonies already under alien control. Over the following weeks, Turner and Morrison used the information they had extracted from Grant to hunt down the remaining Integration Committee members. Some were arrested and put on trial. Others disappeared quietly, eliminated by Turner's hunters before they could escape or destroy evidence. The revelation of Grant's conspiracy shocked human civilization. People could not believe that their own leaders had been planning to sell them out to alien control. The scandal brought down several governments and led to massive reforms in how human colonies were governed. Turner established the Eternal Watch, a permanent organization dedicated to preventing future betrayals of humanity. Its agents operated throughout human space, watching for signs of alien influence and eliminating threats before they could grow into conspiracies. But Turner also understood that the price of protecting humanity might be the loss of some of the freedoms they were trying to protect. The Eternal Watch had broad powers to investigate and eliminate suspected traitors, which made it both a guardian and a potential threat to human liberty. As Turner stood in his new office overlooking Earth, he reflected on everything that had happened since the war ended. He had started as a man seeking justice for his murdered family. Now, he was the guardian of humanity's future, but also a reminder of how far people were willing to go to protect what they loved. The hunt for traitors was over, but the watch for humanity's enemies would never end. Turner Hall. The secret facility on Titan Station hummed with activity as Colonel Alex Turner and Admiral Jake Morrison's forces prepared for their final assault. Through surveillance equipment, they could see Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Grant meeting with former hegemony officials in the main laboratory. After months of hunting individual traitors, Turner was finally face-to-face with the conspiracy's leader. Intelligence confirms Grant and 12 Integration Committee members are inside, reported Commander Nick Foster, who had infiltrated the facility earlier. They're finalizing something called the Colonial Management Protocol. Turner studied the facility's layout on his tactical display. The station was heavily defended with automated weapons and security systems, but Morrison had brought a full military strike team. They had the firepower to breach the defenses, but Turner was more concerned about what they might find inside. "What's the Colonial Management Protocol?" Turner asked. Nick consulted his intelligence files. "It's a system for controlling human colonial governments using alien technology. They plan to install neural control devices in colonial leaders, making them puppets of the Integration Committee." Turner felt his anger boiling over. Grant was not just betraying humanity to aliens. He was planning to enslave human colonies and turn them into alien-controlled territories. "There's more," Nick continued. "They have samples of a biological weapon specifically designed to target humans who refuse to cooperate. Anyone who resists, the neural control will be eliminated." Admiral Morrison checked his weapon and signaled to his assault team. "That's enough. We're going in." The attack on Titan Station began with a coordinated strike on the facility's defenses. Morrison's ships disabled the station's weapons systems, while Turner's ground team breached the outer barriers. The fighting was intense, but brief, as most of the station's security forces surrendered rather than die for Grant's conspiracy. Turner led his team through the facility's corridors toward the main laboratory. Along the way, they discovered the true scope of Grant's crimes. Laboratory rooms contained human test subjects who had been used to develop the neural control technology. Storage areas held weapons designed to kill specific human genetic types. Computer files showed plans to hand over entire human colonies to alien control. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott, as they found a room full of children who had been subjected to alien experiments. How could Grant do this to his own species? Turner had no answer. The evidence showed that Grant and his co-conspirators had moved far beyond simple betrayal. They were actively working to destroy human independence and freedom. The final confrontation took place in the facility's main laboratory, where Grant was meeting with Thekmore and other former hegemony officials. When Turner's team burst into the room, they found the conspirators standing around a holographic display showing human colonial territories marked for alien control. Grant turned to face Turner with a calm expression, as if he had been expecting this moment. "Colonel Turner, I wondered when you would finally track us down." Turner raised his weapon and pointed it at Grant's chest. "It's over, Paul. Your integration committee is finished." Grant smiled coldly. "You still don't understand, do you? We're trying to save humanity from itself. The war proved that humans are too violent and aggressive to survive on their own. We need alien guidance to prevent another catastrophe." "By enslaving human colonies?" Turner demanded. "By experimenting on children? By preventing another war that would destroy billions of lives?" Grant replied. "Sometimes progress requires sacrifice." Turner looked around the laboratory at the evidence of Grant's crimes. Neural control devices, biological weapons, experimental data from human test subjects. This was not about preventing war. It was about power and control. "You're under arrest for treason and crimes against humanity," Morrison announced as his troops surrounded the conspirators. Grant laughed. "You can't arrest us. We have supporters throughout the government and military. This facility is just one small part of a much larger operation." Turner realized that Grant was probably telling the truth. The integration committee had been working for months to place their people in key positions. Even if they captured everyone in this facility, the conspiracy might continue. "Where are the other facilities?" Turner demanded. Grant refused to answer, but Thekmore, the former hegemony admiral, was more cooperative when faced with human weapons. "There are 7 other installations," the alien said in broken English. 3 in human space, 4 in neutral territory, all working on colonial management. Protocol. Turner exchanged glances with Morrison. This was bigger than they had imagined. Grant's conspiracy was not just a few traitors working together, it was a coordinated effort to hand control of human civilization to alien forces. "We need those locations," Turner told Grant. "Tell us where they are, and maybe we can work out a deal." Grant shook his head. "I'll never help you destroy humanity's future. You're the real traitors, Turner. You're condemning our species to another war." Turner had heard enough. He pulled out a device that Karen Bell had developed before her death. It was a truth serum that worked on both humans and aliens, forcing them to answer questions honestly. "You can cooperate voluntarily, or we can make you cooperate," Turner said as he prepared the injection. Grant backed away, but Morrison's soldiers held him steady while Turner administered the drug. Within minutes, Grant was telling them everything. The locations of the other facilities, the names of integration committee members throughout the government, and the details of their plans to control human colonies. The information was devastating. The conspiracy involved hundreds of people and reached into every part of human society. They had been planning to gradually take control of human civilization over several years, making it look like natural political evolution rather than alien conquest. The colonial management protocol is already being tested on 3 outer rim colonies, Grant said in a drugged voice. The neural control devices are in place. The colonial governors don't even know they're being controlled. Turner felt sick. While he had been hunting individual traitors, Grant's conspiracy had been actively enslaving human colonies. Thousands of people were already under alien control. How do we reverse the neural control? Morrison demanded. Kill switches, Grant replied. Each device has a remote shutdown code, but you'll never find them all in time. Turner made his decision. They could not afford to let this conspiracy continue while they hunted down every facility and every conspirator. They needed to send a message that would stop the Integration Committee permanently.